Hello and welcome to the gak.co.uk Guitar Shop podcast. I am your host, Mark Packham. Who is with me this evening?
Hello, my name's Jay. I'm the assistant manager here in the guitar store.
Hello, I'm Joe, and I'm here for bass-related queries, but I guess I'm not the only one.
Well, we should explain. Matt Knight is not with us tonight, so we've got a special guest, first-time podcaster, I assume.
Absolutely.
Mr. James Watts.
Hello. Yes, I'm in the bass department some days, also in the guitar department other days. So
But it's safe to say you're a bass specialist.
I'm bass player first and foremost, yeah.
Does that make me the ranking member of staff tonight?
No, I'm always...
you're the host. You're not the...
I've got the button that can turn your mic down, so...
I can shout louder than you can turn me down.
Maybe. James Watts, tell us a bit about yourself. How long have you been working at the shop, and what do you play bass-wise and amp-wise?
I've been at the shop, on and off now for about 2 years. Left originally to go do another job, which failed miserably, so I returned with my tail between my legs. Gear-wise, I play... I've got a 73 jazz bass. Also an original vintage one, yeah, which is literally my pride and joy. Scared to take it out. And also the road-worn Mexican P bass, which I've done a bit of a homemade relic job on.
A home road wearing.
Yeah, I've road-worn it to hell. Set it on fire. Looks great.
Actually set it on fire?
Yeah, genuinely.
Wow.
That's not covered by warranty. We should
say.
And amp-wise, SVT Classic.
Yep.
A couple of 410s and a little Markbass rig for smaller shows, and that's about it.
Nice. How about you guys? How's your week been? What have you done since we last met up?
Yeah, it's good. I had my mum's 60th birthday.
Yeah?
Cooked for her. It was great.
What'd you make?
She's a vegetarian, so I had to make some weird mushroom...
Good old girl.
Yeah.
You made a weird mushroom.
I made a weird mushroom thing. It was like a mushroom cumin-y thing. I don't really know what it was. I got it off of Jamie Oliver's website.
Wow, she is a lucky woman.
Yeah.
Jay Cross, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's been fine. I've been super busy. Today is actually the last day before I go away.
Oh, yeah.
Going away for 3 weeks. I'm going to America, the United States of America. Spending some time in Philly. Going down to Florida, then going back to Philadelphia. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to see if I can pop into a couple of guitar shops, see if I can, see some stuff that we might not see over here.
Steal some ideas,
absolutely.
Some stock.
Check out the competition.
Go
and see if they've got a rockin' podcast.
Absolutely.
As we have.
I'll spread the podcast.
Podcast.
The podcast.
The podcast.
The podcast as an offshoot.
It's the podcast.
the one that no one will listen to.
Sometimes I feel that Joe Branton is prodding me with his irritating comments.
That's great.
There you go. So, but this week I've been really busy. I've hardly played anything at all, just because the shop has been absolutely mental, and I've watched a lot of football. So.
Well, it's good that you haven't played much this week. So I feel this week you may not have as much of a contribution as you normally do, because as we've got an abundance of bass players in the room, Joe Branton has put together a little podcast episode.
You didn't let him be in charge.
I know, terrible.
Semi in charge. I put forward a suggestion.
Joe Branton has suggested that we talk about basically alternative basses. And when we say alternative, basically we mean not P bass and not jazz bass.
Yes.
Because
we always talk about P bass and jazz bass.
Yeah.
And we're probably a bit too much. I mean, we all play kind of Fender basses and really love them.
Yeah,
but
everyone around here owns a Fender P bass, all four of us.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff out there that perhaps we kind of gloss over, and now's the time, while we're all here, to talk about them.
Yeah.
You've written out a little list.
I have.
Of weird, wonderful...
Well, that's it. I've tried to go for weird ones. And when we say weird ones, I haven't just picked, loads of active stuff with a pair of humbuckers in, or like through neck stuff. I wanted to choose because that stuff's very popular as well, just because it fits all the kind of the modern requirements of a bass player. So I wanted to pick the stuff that really doesn't fall into the neat little category that most bass players shop for. So the ones that really wouldn't be what someone would look for if they wanted something. Every bass player wants something versatile these days, so I wanted to pick stuff that isn't necessarily obviously versatile, but it's just really, really cool.
Now, you say that, but the first bass that you've put down here is the Burns Bison. which actually has got a lot of switching options.
That's true. Yeah.
Perhaps not your kind of modern active EQ, treble and bass boost. What's going on with the Bison?
Well, the Bisons, I really like the Bison. It fits into that kind of that mod British 60s, really odd looking oversized horn sort of shape, really odd scratch plate, and then you've got 3 single coil pickups with a variety of kind of pickup options that, instead of just being kind of, like neck and middle pickup, neck and bridge, something like that, they've named them all appropriate to the kind of sound that you'll get from them. So for example, there is like one of the sounds is called a split bass or a split P sound on there, which is basically a precision style sound.
Yeah.
Or you've got the Wild Dog, which is just your bridge pickup.
I've always really appreciated that on the Burn stuff. They've got Wild Dog.
Yeah, I'm speaking to that as well.
Just like aggressive.
Well, it is. It's really cool. I find they're really lo-fi, and for me, they're really kind of they're great for that sign of that kind of 60s sound, that sort of small faces, like really drivey, subby bass, and especially things like the Wild Dog sounds. I just think they're wicked for anyone who wants to be really aggressive, and they're just really different. You're still a 34-inch scale. I mean, what do you think of them, James? Have you?
I actually love them. And I know they're not the most popular design in the world. We don't really get asked for them that often in the shop. But the last one that we had in the shop, I have to admit, I sat there and during a quiet moment sort of got to grips with it and really loved it.
Yeah.
If you chuck some overdrive on there, they just sound
They're
huge.
so aggressive. That's the thing. I can't think of that many other basses that can be as aggressive as that in a kind of a passive format.
But they do that vintage kind of woofy 70s thing really well, but then put some more modern kind of effects in line with it, and you get this super bright, really in your face kind of Jesse F. Keeler, Death from Above type tone.
Yeah, definitely.
Sound great with a pick, or you can, they can go the opposite way and do quite mellow stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you could use them just as effectively, as I said, for like small faces style, sort of grindy, subby bass with finger style.
And they look great.
They do look great. They look
not
really
to everyone's
different.
taste.
But that was kind of the idea. I wanted to pick stuff that was going to look different, and I think it actually suffers for that look as well, because it doesn't fall into that. The standard of what everyone's looking for. Those oversized horns and that sort of 60s mod look isn't an especially popular one anymore.
I guess the thing is like the guitar version, I guess what you consider the guitar version of this, which would be the Cobra or the Marquis.
Yeah.
They've I think Burns have always relied quite heavily on the sort of Hank Marvin influence. And Hank Marvin has championed the market, well, the Burns brand in general, and I don't think they've sort of had that for the bass on the bass side of things particularly.
You say that, but Jem Archer from Oasis was that's the guy's name, isn't it? The bass player.
I don't know, but I know that Oasis used one.
Yeah, the guy, the fella who took over after Guixi.
Right.
In Oasis used them, and he's probably the kind of most famous kind of proponent of them in the last few years.
Right.
Incidentally, also the Burns Bison formed a big part of Matthew Knight's bass sound when he was playing bass.
Oh, really?
Burns Bison flat wounds with the most distortion you could possibly imagine.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah, and I think actually that bass really suits that really well. Put flatties on there if you want to go for a kind of almost McCartney-esque kind of plummy tone, but also if you want to put a load...
That's the
his
perfect word for it.
Yeah.
That's his phrase as well. That's his catchphrase.
Or you could go for, put a load of fuzz on it with flat wounds, and it would actually sound, like you say, almost that Death from Above-y kind of just totally fuzzed out distortion bass
like
sound.
a lead instrument.
Yeah.
They're really good value for money as well.
Really?
They're like £500 and they come with a hard case.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's brilliant. I can't think of many, if any other like bass of that spec, that price that comes with a hard case.
No, absolutely. And black with chrome hardware or white with gold hardware.
Yeah, the black's got black scratch plate as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all black.
Yeah,
they look great.
They're aesthetically they've nailed it. Yeah.
Now you mentioned the oversized horns on the Bison. The next bass that you've listed, which people might not have got their hands around for a while, is the Danelectro Longhorn, the longest of all the horns.
Yeah,
The horniest bass around.
It is the horniest bass around. What's the Danelectro Longhorn, for those who don't know?
Well, it's a short scale bass with a very small body that's very kind of tubby and fat, and then has really long, very slender, extended horns that run kind of a good halfway up the neck on either side of the body. It's incredibly eye catching.
Sort of looks like an onion. That's how I would describe it to someone.
Yeah, that's good. And I suppose it comes in like I think they call it copper burst.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, always with the Danelectro catalogue, things go in and out of production, as we've talked about before, and the Longhorns, I think they were doing them for kind of 6 months, and then maybe they dropped out, and now they're back in there.
Yeah.
And I know they've done some full-scale ones as well, but the current one is short-scale.
It's a short-scale, yeah, which is brilliant. I mean, actually, the bass that I played for the longest period of time before buying anything else was an old, a long-scale Hondo copy.
Really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, love that bass. Sold it to someone in Spain.
Wow.
Yeah, they bothered to get carriage for it and everything. Yeah, but great bass. Anyway, but the Danelectro is kind of the original, a pair of lipstick pickups in there, so not... I mean, that's really unusual. A pair of lipstick pickups in a bass, like right at the neck and right at the bridge.
Tonally, they're a little bit limited, but because they're so nichey, when you get someone who loves one and it's perfect for that kind of 60s vibe.
Yeah.
They fit the bill.
I'll tell you where else it works really well is Fat Mike.
Well, I was going to say, isn't Fat Mike, he sort of championed this?
Yeah, he doesn't play Longhorns, but you get the same pickup selection in any Danelectro bass.
His sound, I would say, is a bit tighter because he does use the full-scale DC59 bass, is that right?
Yeah.
And you do get a bit more kind of almost like precision-esque zing from it.
But super, like,
so
you with someone like NoFX, you'd sort of think, well, I mean, there's a pop punk band, right? But he does a lot of stuff, he does
a lot of bass chords,
does a lot of chords and like a lot of fast stuff and some slow stuff when he's letting the the two guitarists take over. But NoFX are one of those bands. I mean, I sort of make no secret of the fact that I'm sort of grew up a punk through and through. But like, NoFX are one of those bands that if people ever think, oh, punk's rubbish, it's just people, there's no intelligence there. NoFX is definitely one of those bands to listen to because there's so much going on there.
Technically, Fat Mike is absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
I think that says something about the bass as well.
Absolutely.
He could just play a P bass or a jazz, and that would probably work fine, but actually he's kind of carved out a niche by using the Danelectro stuff of having this like really iconic, bright, snappy signature sound that actually I don't think you could really get from a P bass.
No, I don't think so either.
Certainly the
Masonite bodies as well.
Yeah. And this is going to sound, in terms of the Longhorn, this is going to sound really disparaging, but it sounds like wood. It sounds like a plank of wood, which...
They're a bit rough and ready.
Yeah, they are a bit rough and ready, and I think if you were doing like a 60s garagey type thing, then the Longhorn would certainly fit into that and give you, again, a sound that most people these days aren't really using.
No, exactly. And again, value for money on the Longhorn. They're coming in at under £400.
Sounds right, yeah.
So, yeah, they're...
I mean, but, we've spoken about the Dano stuff in the past. They're not they're not going to be everyone's first choice, but I mean, I've owned a couple of Danelectros. I think pretty much everyone I know has owned a Danelectro at one point or another, and they're great. They're absolutely wicked guitars and great basses, just as something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Something, which is exactly what this podcast is for, obviously. It's great, I think, as a second instrument and something if you just want something a little bit different. I think they're absolutely brilliant.
Now, a bass that you've got on the list, which actually I was kind of looking at the other day and thinking, I quite fancy one of those. The Epiphone Jack Casady. Now, the reason I was thinking about it is because someone asked about one on Twitter, and I thought, I haven't really thought about those for a long time, and I guess that's why they kind of fit into this kind of this podcast, really. And they're one of those things that, again, they've been in the catalogue a long time, but they're not a Thunderbird, or they're not like a Les Paul bass, or something that you would instantly think about when you think, Gibson and Epiphone. But actually, the Jack Casady does a really good job of kind of straddling the price points of like high-end Epiphone, maybe starting to get into kind of low-end Gibson stuff.
Which is a reoccurring issue that we often bring up.
Well, it's not really an issue. It's that they're doing good stuff
but,
for
it's
that kind of money. And again, for that kind of price point, it does something that nothing else does.
No, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what the Jack Casady is.
Well, maybe should I let James take one, because I've been running all the bases. What do you think of the Jack Casady?
I like the Jack Casady. I think it's a really affordable option for someone who maybe can't go for the full Gibson 335 or something like that. It's just like one of those really nice hollow body, warm yet it can be quite clanky at the same time, like in a good way. It's kind of one of those unforgiving basses. You really need to kind of stylistically, it kind of suits that. Again, that sort of everything from that vintage kind of 60s sound right through to the kind of modern day rockabilly, psychobilly bands that you get.
Well, it's all about that pickup, really, that makes it so versatile, because you can, whilst it's a single pickup bang in the middle of the body, which actually I think really lends itself to people who would be used to Fenders rather than Gibsons. The neck I actually find is very different from most from Gibson necks on things like the...
Gibson necks I find tend to be quite narrow, like Thunderbird, almost on some of them. They go down to like almost like a smaller than a Jazz Paul Q-esque, like... kind of a squeeze when you get down to the nut, but the Jack Casady is kind of almost like P-bass.
Yeah, it's a big, thick, deep P-bass style neck. It's really comfortable. But the pickup, what is it that changes on the on
impedance?
Impedance,
you can kind of ramp it up a notch depending on what you're playing. Kind of as the same kind of way that if you were to switch from an active to passive, in the extremes, but you've got these little midway points in between.
Yeah, and right. You've got three settings. 50, 250, and 500. Yeah. And at 50, you're really focusing on the hollow body element of the bass, so you're getting loads of that kind of clangy, authentic 60s sound.
Yeah.
Up to 250, you're relying on the pickup a little bit more, a little less on the body, so more of standard P bass sort of sound. And way up at 500, you've got something really aggressive that if you were going to just pop a little bit of like amp head gain after it's going to really soak all that up and really drive very nicely.
Another great thing about them is that they're gold.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the only sort of thing I know about them.
Really? But they do them in black as well with white binding, which I think is amazing.
Nice.
Are they still current? I've never seen one of those.
Yeah,
really?
There's also a limited edition silver burst. I don't know if we've still got
I think
one.
we've done all our allocation of those, but that looked awesome as well. Do you know, I'm just talking about them again, something that has kind of reminded me, the body on them is based on an old Les Paul designed signature model. So for a while, I think in the mid to late 70s, again, I'll probably get corrected on this, Les Paul wanted a hollow body guitar. So there was a thing called the Les Paul that was, it looked like a Jack Casady, but it was a 6-string electric with 2 humbuckers as far as I'm aware. And then when they went to Jack Casady to make his signature model, as far as I'm aware, this is the story, he saw that and went, yeah, I want that, but a bass. And that's how they've come up with this kind of weird, it's like an offset 335, I guess is how you describe the body.
I guess so.
Single pickup with the impedance selection, again, which is a feature from Les Paul's original signature model guitar. Yeah, really weird history behind the Jack Casady. And again, a really good option, like I say, if you maybe can't stretch to the 335 or even a Midtown. But I think even they've got a character that's apart from those, really. Yeah.
I think, but also at the same time, you've just got to look at who Jack Casady played for and played with to sort of get the versatility of it. Like, he was playing with, like, Hendrix, I think he played with Ray Charles.
I thought he'd done some stuff on, like, I thought it was, like, West Coast session-y type stuff. So, like, pretty mellow, summery... kind of
I don't know a huge amount about him. He's Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna, I think, were the big things. But I'm sure, like, he was. I'm sure he did some sessions with, like, I'm sure he did some stuff for, like, Ray Charles and Hendrix and all sorts of people. And there's a
again, a range of tones there that having that impedance selector on the bass kind of really helps.
That's literally one of the main selling points about it. That makes it unique.
Yeah, totally. I can't think of another bass that's got that feature that does that. I mean,
it's such a great feature. It's such a versatile feature. It's odd that it is the only bass, really, certainly the only bass on our shelf that has that sort of feature.
And a lot of people who pick it up, because you get people who wander into the shop and they're not necessarily sure what they're looking for. They're just kind of, they'll go for what's eye-catching. And like you say, it's like, it's gold, it stands out, it looks awesome. And then they learn about this extra little feature that no other bass seems to have, and it's just like there's always this great look of surprise, and they just sound awesome.
Now, talking about that crossover between Epiphone and Gibson price points, I guess, one of the basses that's kind of in the slightly more affordable price point, but has Gibson on the headstock, is the Junior DC bass. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
the Pelham Blue one.
The double cutaway sort of Les Paul Junior style bass.
What's the score with these? So they kind of look like you might have seen like a double cut.
Yeah,
Les Paul Junior.
Like a Junior. Yeah,
but a bass completely in Pelham Blue. They were. It was a very limited run, and we were really lucky to get one. And they come with the same pickups that you'll see on things like the Midtown and the SG bass.
Same configuration, so big chunky humbucker in the neck.
That's right. So
mini humbucker in the bridge.
Yeah. So they're those standard TB, I think they're called TB humbucker.
That's right,
Plus and TB humbucker mini.
Yep.
In the bridge. But yeah, really wicked. I just think. Kind of not underrated, but missed because it has the same pickup configuration as kind of a couple of the other current models, and it isn't necessarily what you would think of if you wanted a Gibson bass. If you wanted a short scale Gibson bass,
it's definitely like the underdog.
Yeah.
So were they in the product catalogue before they did this Pelham Blue finish, or is it something they've just done in this limited colour? That's kind of super limited.
This time, I mean, it has come in and out of kind of the Gibson catalogue throughout the years, but yeah, when they did this, it was just the one colour. They released it in Pelham Blue, which, you actually for basses, you can't get many basses in Pelham Blue, and it is
I can't
the only other one they do is the non-reverse Thunderbird.
Oh yeah,
which actually looks absolutely incredible.
Stunning,
But again, super limited. They're not a regular production model.
No, exactly. but so just for that, I think it's just. They're kind of, I suppose, a little bit less remarkable than some of the other stuff we've mentioned already. But I think if anyone was, thinking of a short scale Gibson bass and we're going to look towards an SG, they are definitely worth a shout. They will have the same sort of tones, but just for a look, for having a completely Pelham Blue, the double cutaway Les Paul Junior style just looks great. So short scale basses, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it really is that, isn't it? It's the same pickups, I guess, as an SG. Body wise, they're a little bit thicker.
I guess so, yeah. Well, the SGs are very thin. So, this is kind of, I suppose, like a Les Paul.
It doesn't have the same contours as like an SG. The SG's kind of
softer. No, it's
to the
very,
touch.
very flat. It's very slab body, the Junior.
It's a bit more kind of boom, one shape, just a bit of a style statement, really.
Yeah, I think so. Like, no one else will have anything like this because they were such a limited run.
I like
such an unusual shape, unusual colour, and not the sort of bass you see people playing anyway. So really wicked bits of kit.
Yeah, it's strange how they haven't been more popular, to be honest, because we've had, you tend to be, someone will come in looking for an SG and they'll often go for, the Junior bass instead, but they'll always kind of return to the SG, I think, almost through fear of the unknown.
Yeah,
they're just kind of, because it's a lesser known bass, they'll just kind of go, I think I'll just stick with the SG. It's more classic,
For me, I'd go the other way. I kind of want to get something that no one else has got, and that sounds ironic because I love P basses. But if I had the choice of those two, actually, I think I would probably go for the Junior. I would really just go, I've seen quite a lot of SG basses before. I'll give this a try. And also maybe a little less prone to neck dive. I mean, SG basses they're getting better all the time, but because the Junior's maybe a bit chunkier, and it's obviously short scale, I think maybe it won't be so prone to the headstock diving down.
Probably right.
Let's move away from Gibson stuff and to a brand that actually we don't talk about very much across the whole range, and maybe we should do a bit more because certainly on basses they do some great stuff for the money. ESP and LTD.
Yeah.
Which basses have you picked out that are kind of worth talking about?
Well, I thought the Phoenix bass was kind of definitely worth a shout.
Well, I mean, excellent segue from talking about Gibson because, I mean, the Phoenix is
very much based on the Thunderbird.
Obviously based on the Gibson Thunderbird.
Yeah.
What sort of price point are they coming in at? What's the spec? Give us the rundown.
Well, the Phoenix 204, you can get it in kind of a black finish with a white scratch plate, or and I think looks absolutely incredible, white with a white scratch plate. They are kind of active.
That sounds very nondescript.
Yeah. Well, Well, I'm actually a little fuzzy on kind of on what the exact definition of this is, but it has a battery box in the back for a 9-volt. But rather than having your standard boost and cut for bass and treble and maybe middle as well, you have just a passive style tone pot.
Okay.
But what it's doing is kind of all boost. So if you were to run it completely flat, you would be in a standard passive position.
Yeah.
Whereas the more you level it up, the more you're getting into kind of just an overall sort of tone boosted kind of area. So more kind of like partially volume boost. It just feels like everything just gets a bit more modern when you ramp it up. So I think that gives it a lot of versatility. I actually found the Phoenix was really great for just really funky stuff.
Okay.
For just being really really kind of mid scooped and kind of sharp.
So do you think that the tone is perhaps doing a bit more than just adding treble the more you go up? Do you think it's giving you perhaps like a mid scoop, add bass and treble and maybe cut the mid slightly?
Yeah. I mean, everything just seems to get a bit more modern. So yeah, it feels a little bit wetter and your high end feels a little bit crisper. So I guess it's giving you kind of a bit more of a modern feel, is it?
From what I know about these basses, I mean, the other main feature I would say is that they're through neck.
That's right, yeah, which is incredible kind of for sort of the price point that they're hitting. But yeah. And pickup wise, in there, just 2 passive humbuckers. That's right, 2 of the LTD standard kind of active humbuckers in there. But literally in white, they look incredible. A through neck white everywhere, and it's a white lacquered neck as well, white headstock. They just look really awesome. And
they look very, very chunky as well. Even the headstocks are, like, they're just big. Like everything about that bass just screams like just play me like really hard and just make a huge noise.
Oh, it's a reverse headstock as well.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the other
matching headstock as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
on those?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
price wise on those,
they're like just under £360. So I think anyone who was looking at an Epiphone Thunderbird, you have to try out.
Well, I mean straight away through neck and like you say that kind of active circuitry.
Yeah.
What else have you picked out from the LTD range that you think might be worth looking at?
Well, their cop on the precision bass was the other thing that I thought was was rather fetching.
It sort of crosses the boundaries of this podcast of not talking about P basses, but what are the kind of twists on the design that they've put in there to?
Shall I throw this one over to you, James, just to say that?
I really like this one. I think because you've got the PJ setup, a little bit of a relic on the paint job, I seem to remember.
That's right, yeah.
Really, really love it. I think as a brand in general, they do their own twists on sort of other classic brands, in a really nice way. They just kind of tweak the designs slightly. I mean, I love the versatility of a PJ pickup setup.
I actually think it's also something that Fender just never seem to
realise.
No, exactly. They don't. Like, the only PJ that you can get that's passive is the Aerodyne, and the Aerodyne is very love-hate, I think, for its finish. So to release something in just a classic P-bass.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's nice to have something that's a no-nonsense design like a P-bass, but has just got that extra funky oomph that you get out of the jazz pickup.
Well, exactly, and a jazz bass on the bridge, that sort of sound is something that's characterised modern playing a lot more. We've certainly gone from using pickups bang on the neck to the middle to then needing that little bit of top, and it's it's something that brings the P-bass into the 21st century a bit.
No, totally. I think they're great, and I think just as a brand in general, they really cover all the bases. They've got a really nice spread from super affordable stuff right up to the super custom shop high end gear. Everything's just good quality, and the P-bass in particular is one of my faves.
I think what they've been doing, and this kind of goes for the guitars as well, Jay, and you'll probably agree with me on this, is ESP and LTD have tried to move away from just strictly metal stuff.
Yeah, completely. They are becoming a real viable competitor, like across the board. I mean, if someone comes in and is looking at a Les Paul, and you sort of throw in the curveball of a Horizon. Yeah. They really are absolutely brilliant and really,
Eclipse, you mean?
Yes, I do mean an Eclipse. Sorry. It's been a long week.
The Les Paul-esque.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean a Horizon at all. I meant an Eclipse.
Although the Horizon's still good.
Yes,
That's like their Super Strat.
Yes, yeah. The other one that I'm a big fan of, from the LTD range, is the model. I can't remember the model, the Telecaster shape one.
The
Shock horror.
TE.
Yes.
Yeah, the TE.
Who'd have thought it? I'm into the
do
Tele
like
one.
a wide range humbucker on the neck?
It's not a wide range. They do
range.
just a model with a humbucker.
But that's great. It looks kind of like a telly. It's kind of got a bit of a twist on a telly. It's a little bit more jaunty. But they've got this lovely thin satin neck. So yeah, I just think ESP and LTD have got they're becoming, like you say. They've always been metal.
Yeah,
and now it's sort of moving away from that. It's that no, it's not. They're not just metal guitars. They do other things, and they are super versatile. And they are there for the individual that wants something a bit more wide ranging.
I think the other thing that they've kind of capitalised on is actually introducing this kind of quite gentle, careful form of relicking, which obviously from Fender. And I suppose from Gibson as well, you have to move into a much higher price bracket to get that sort of thing. So it's quite subtle, and it's not they're not trying to be overkill, because these are still polyurethane finish guitars, but it's a nice touch. It kind of shows that they've got their finger on the pulse, because of course relicking is something that's becoming more and more popular.
And for the kind of price points they are, actually the relic job on there is very, very good.
Yeah, very good.
It's something that, not naming any names, sometimes you see at that kind of mid-level guitar relic jobs that perhaps aren't quite as convincing as they should be. And the LTD stuff has really got it down, certainly for the money. It's getting up there close to that kind of almost like the Fender Road Warns, or not quite obviously at the relic side of things, at a custom shop, but getting
it's
up
convincing.
That way.
It's the kind of thing that you glance at it, and for a second there you think that's the real deal. And it's only when you get up close and get hyper analytical that you realise it's a Road Warn. But they look great.
Joe Brenton, today
yes.
You and I have had several conversations about how you are considering purchasing a hollow body or semi hollow body bass.
Yes.
I think you're perhaps starting a new phase in your life where you're
true.
taking things perhaps a bit more seriously. You want to get away from, your teenage years basses.
I've been listening to a lot of McCartney.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And Small Faces.
Maybe soon shaving off the tash and getting a better haircut.
No.
I think you should go the other way. I fully think you should embrace the Bronson. We had this conversation a couple of months ago when you first shaved your hair.
Big tash.
I think you should go just the tash.
Yeah, I saw a guy in the street the other day who looked like the middle-aged version of you.
Wow.
And he looked good.
Are you sure you didn't just see Joe?
I was in the street the other day.
He is in the street often.
I am kind of middle-aged. I tell you what, I was watching the Beatles rooftop gig today on YouTube, and I'm banging to Paul McCartney's look. He was like, it's just...
Was he rocking the mop?
Well, it was a subtle, it's a subtle blue suit.
The rooftop gig is post-mop.
Yeah,
okay.
It's big beard, long hair,
big beard,
the Jim Morrison
casual
look.
suit.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Suit, no tie.
Violin bass, suit, no tie. Very important.
Now, obviously, as you just mentioned, one of the key parts of that ensemble is Paul McCartney's Höfner bass.
Yes.
We're actually now a Höfner dealer,
yes.
Stocking some of the Ignition range.
That's
and
right.
We've talked about it
and
briefly.
Some of their premium range, their HTC range.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about them briefly on the podcast. What is so great about Höfner Ignitions?
Well, the great thing about Höfner Ignition is that Höfner are another company that I think have kind of upped their game and got their finger on the pulse a little bit, because they've realised that the violin bass, whilst everyone thinks is very, very cool, it's so different from everything that has kind of become the staple standard for a modern bass player, that if you want to get people to play them, they've got to be able to afford to try one first.
Yeah,
sort of thing, without the full investment in one of their HTC ranges, which is sort of £600 plus. The Ignition series kind of represents that. So they're hitting the shelf at like sub £300. You can get them in sunburst, or you can get them in black. just get it in Sunburst. And
deal done.
Yeah. You can buy a hard case separately for like less than £100 as well. And I just think they're absolutely brilliant and a great idea just for introducing people into them. So actually the materials are all the same for the Ignition bass. The finish is polyurethane rather than nitro. So that's kind of looking a little less authentic as the higher priced ones, and the pickups are slightly different as well, so it's kind of entry level.
What pickups in there? Are they similar kind of like mini humbuckers to one of the originals?
That's right. I mean, they look more like mini humbuckers by today's standards than the sort of microphonic looking pickups that you get in the proper
in the originals.
In the originals, but still the same controls. I mean, those controls were kooky. They were.
It pick up on and off, and then phase. Is that correct? Switching wise.
Well, it was they had pick up on and off, and then I think the third switch that's on the Ignition bass is a rhythm or solo.
Okay.
Which is like a minor volume boost.
Well, I mean, that's only without wanting to drag this back to guitars. I mean, that's what I want to do. It's only the same as like a Jaguar, like a 60s era or reissue Jaguar.
Sure.
You've got on the Jaguars, you've got at the top controls, you've got your switch between your sort of lead or rhythm, if you were talking about it in Les Paul terms, and your rhythm circuit, you've got master volume, master tone, and then you switch down and you've got pick up on and off for your neck, pick up on and off for your bridge, and then like a phase or a volume. I mean, so it's it's not that unusual in the broad spectrum.
No, absolutely, but it is really unusual for bass. I can't think of another bass that does something like that.
Really, I didn't know that.
I wonder if what's going on is that instead of being a boost, because to have a true boost, the bass would need to be active in some way.
Of course.
So I wonder if there's like some sort of capacitor in there that actually takes away from the volume when you're on the rhythm sound, and then puts it all back in when you're on the lead sound.
Yeah, it must be something like that. I mean, like I say, it's relatively minor, and I think it's more there for the authentic touch than anything else. But it sounds absolutely great.
Tone-wise, I hate to go back to the term, but kind of plummy, McCartney-esque.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it comes with round rounds, which I would immediately change for flats.
Okay.
It sounds great. I'm so impressed with the build quality. I mean, Epiphone as well do their viola bass, which is their version of the Höfner violin bass, which we also sell. But the Höfner one, even on the Ignition, you still get those kind of authentic white plastic tuning heads, which I think really sets the look off. Whereas on the Epiphone, they've moved on to those kind of modern chicken foot sort of.
Part of our conversation today was both of us kind of going, yeah, sort of, I just really want one. I think I'll just get one.
Was that sort of the be all and the end all of the competition? I can imagine it kind of was.
Just both of us going,
yeah. I kind of want a Höfner. Yeah.
What do you think of them, James? Had much time on them?
I'll be honest with you. The one that we got into the shop was obviously very popular because I managed to glance at it, and whilst I was away working like a dog, it got sold.
Really?
And I literally didn't even get the chance to play it. So it looks amazing, and obviously the viola bass is something that we get asked about all the time. I think the Epiphone one's great. I would have loved to get the chance to play the Ignition, but unfortunately not.
More on their way. And, do swing by the shop. Hopefully we'll have some more in stock and people can come down and check them out. Now, another hollow body that we do, which sounds totally not like you would imagine, is the Gretsch hollow body bass. For me, much brighter than you would think and much punchier. They're actually quite a large... I mean, they're a large bass overall, but they're a large centre block. Is that right? They've got a kind of actual block in the middle.
Yeah, so they've got a lot about it that makes it sound kind of solid.
Well, and they're kind of very bright round wound strings on there. I think they're a really good rock bass, which is not what you'd imagine from a giant hollow body bass guitar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you had much time to spin on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say as an alternative to maybe a jazz bass or something, they're, again, to use the term unforgiving, they're one of those basses that are really, you have to kind of, they're not for the most aggressive players, I'd say. Even as a rock bass, I think if you're going to start messing around with overdrive and things like that, they kind of start to get a little bit clunky in a good way. dependent on the style that you're playing, but you have to kind of, I'd say they're ideal for those kind of players who like to sort of sit back in a mix, let the bass sort of just do its thing, just lock in with the drums and just kind of tickle it, you know. I think they sound great like that.
You wouldn't want to put it up too much up front, but great if you want to really like fill out a sound.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as a kind of, you know, the classic sort of rhythm section style bass, you know, they're just really in your face. Bright orange, as I seem to recall.
Orange. You can also get it in black.
Yeah,
bright orange.
You'd get the orange one.
Yeah,
don't get the black one.
Of course you would.
Get the orange one.
When we first got the big orange 810 in store, I tried it out, the AD200 into an orange 810.
With the orange Gretsch.
It's great.
It's completely orange.
Yeah.
Dressed as a Smurf.
Yeah.
Drinking a Fanta. What about the question that we always get asked in terms of hollow body stuff, what about feedback on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd worry about that sort of thing for me because I use a lot of effects, but...
I think, in my experience, they've been all right. They're not particularly. I mean, they're lively pickups, but they're by no means uncontrollable.
I mean, if you're playing something like that, you've just got to be aware of what you've got to be aware of of your surroundings, and you know if what you're, you know, if the issue is you're getting feedback, but you're playing through an 810 and you're facing the amp the entire time. I mean, you're going to get feedback. I mean, there's no question about it. Are they're the same as the guitars in the way that they've got the master volume on the lower bout, don't they?
Well, I mean, that's again, you know, one of the great things about most of the Gretsch guitars and talking about feedback.
They have a million volume controls on them.
They've got one that's easily accessible if you are starting to feed back.
That's something that I mean, bizarrely, maybe not bizarrely, but I had a Gretsch, which I've spoken about before, and I bought that I bought it in like 2005, I think, from Mark when he was working at the shop. And at the time I was like, I've got volume here, why have I got that volume there? And you actually, I remember very vividly, you took it off me and you went, oh yeah, I'm Jay Cross, I'm playing, there's loads of feedback. And then you stopped playing and then there was loads of feedback and then you went, bam. And obviously this is podcast, you can't see me, but you just have to imagine that I'm playing.
He made the motion of turning down the guitar.
My arm is sweeping across the face of the guitar and the volume control just cuts off. You just roll it off really easy. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That's really good. And that I've used that technique many times when showing people about the guitar. And the bass is exactly the same, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you're saying is everything you know, you learned from me.
No, that's absolutely not what I'm saying. That would be a huge understatement.
Joe Branton.
Yes.
Talking about weird basses and talking about slightly more obscure stuff, I did say I'd let you talk perhaps about a couple of weirder effects that you might want to point out just to bass players who might not have considered them before. Here is your chance to do so.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe should we do this kind of between us, like effects that don't that aren't necessarily conventional for bass players? Because I think bass players I think certainly when bass players come into the shop and they're maybe looking to get into effects, I think the first things that you look for bass are very obvious. They're drive and then often something like a wah, an auto wah, things like that.
Oh, I wouldn't say wah. I don't get that very often in the shop. I'd definitely say fuzz and distortion is top of the list. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It seems every bass player these days wants to have a drive pedal or wants to have a kind of fuzz.
Essential.
I mean, wah pedals are most definitely an acquired taste. You know, I mean, funk isn't necessarily that big right now.
But I think when bass players when people are getting into playing bass,
oh yeah, they're great fun.
I think that's kind of maybe one of the things. I think certainly, you know, when a lot of people, when they're just starting out, you might listen to people like Flea and stuff like that, and I think often those pedals are looked at. But you know, yes, you're absolutely right. Sort of drive and fuzz are kind of the number one. But there are lots and lots of effects that I think people don't think about for bass that are actually great. I mean, first things first, I think if you were looking to really get into some weird effects, get a Line 6 M5.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we've said that before, certainly for guitar, but for bass, they're absolutely brilliant.
In terms of our podcast, I would say certainly not an underappreciated gem because we do talk about them nearly every week. But the M5, as you know, as much as we've talked about it for guitar, that all applies on bass as well. It's definitely a pedal that's got a lot of crossover appeal, a lot of stuff that you can use on both. And for the money that they are, which is not a lot.
No.
Sub 100?
So I think, in or around 100 quid.
There's a lot on there that, there's a few guitar effects that perhaps might not apply, but there's certainly a lot that...
basically it's got a univibe on there. So
for bass.
That's it, yeah. I that's exactly what my M5 is on my board for. Just the univibe.
The univibe. Yeah. Can I nominate one, actually? And one that I used to sell all the time, and I think has dropped off the radar a little bit because people have actually discovered what it is. And when you find out what it is, you probably think it's not quite as useful as it is, which is the Electro-Harmonix bass balls. Now, I can remember being in the shop a lot, and people come in going, oh yeah, I want that distortion pedal with the Electro-Harmonix bass balls. You know that one that says distortion on it? Yeah, I want that. I want that because I want distorted bass. And you kind of have to go, they're not a distortion pedal. They are two EQ filters working into each other, plus also
against you.
There's a sort of clipping distortion circuit on it, and people go, have you got any distortion pedal? But the bass balls is a wicked pedal.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it is hard to describe. It's like two envelope filters falling into each other.
It's got very much kind of that envelope filter sort of sound, and that little distortion click switch. I think for the money, why wouldn't you have one?
What are they, like 50 quid or something?
I don't even think they're that much, are they?
They might be less, yeah. But they're absolutely brilliant. I think actually for anyone who wants anything kind of sort of muddy, slightly envelopey kind of sound. Actually, to be honest, I'd probably use my £200 Electro-Harmonix microsynth for exactly the sound that
you get off the bass balls for 50 quid or sub 50 quid. But they're a bit of a weird one because I do think they've fallen off the map a little bit, and like I said, people used to come in and get them all the time, and I think it's bass players should start going back to the bass balls a little bit because they are a wicked pedal, take up no room on your pedal board, and like we said, don't cost very much money at all.
Yeah.
Have we got one more pedal that we want to talk about before we do some staff picks?
We said, James, have you got anything that you think people should especially
I've always been a big fan of, maybe pushing the boat out slightly, of the, speaking multi-effects, the ME50B.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think it's a great pedal. I think what I love about it is that I'm not a big fan of things that get too confusing. I like simplicity in pedals, and I think the ME50B kind of really sort of sits nicely in you've got your three different stages.
Everything's rotary controls.
Yeah, everything's kind of you can get your fingers in there and get it. You can just kind of get to grips with it. You're not tapping buttons all the time. You've got controls that you can actually feel and you can hear them working. Really, it's just really apparent that what you're doing is actually having an effect on your tone, and
all the effects are usable and useful.
Yeah,
in fact, even the expression pedal, which I don't think is an especially applicable thing.
You've got. It's got a whammy function on there. It's got, you've got wah, you've got volume, you've got even some crazy bass drum sound.
Yeah, you can use it as a kick. It's got, you can have resonance running off of
the kick feature on that is probably like my greatest. Whenever I was in the bass department selling, it's like the greatest bit of my selling arsenal because you're playing. You're basically playing. Arsenal. You're playing, going, yeah, it's a pretty good multi effects. Yeah, I'll just do this, and by the way, it's got an expression pedal, and boom, 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 and then you stop pressing down on it, and it keeps going.
And you start doing the YMCA motions.
What's that? What's that? How's there's a whole game to get a bass pedal, and it's got, and you go, yeah. It's got a kick drum in it.
You don't need a drummer.
I have one on my board, and I like to start that kick drum up just to annoy my drummer.
Amazing.
Just to be like, listen, mate.
You're not needed.
Just remember why it's your round first every week.
You're easily replaced. Gents, let's do some staff picks. I think back in the day, the ME50 would definitely have been a staff pick, by the way.
The ME50B is wicked. Although it doesn't have a tremolo on it.
Get yourself a Boss TR2, which actually works really well for bass.
It's a TR2 not on the...
No, it's the only thing that upsets me about it. But because everything on there is absolutely wicked.
Basically, any sensible bass player wouldn't use tremolo because it almost defeats the point of having a bass.
I have a tremolo on my board, and I use a Line 6 M5 for the Univibe.
I said any sensible. Let's do some staff picks. Jay Cross, what have you been playing this week?
I've kind of just a tangent slightly because that's kind of what I do. I kind of feel like, you know how when like you have like a big family meal and you sort of like you're no longer the youngest in the family.
Oh,
and
where is this going?
Where it's going is like, you know, you quite often got an adult's table and a kid's table, and then like the eldest kid is like, oh, there's too many young. Okay, you're gonna have to come and sit. I kind of feel like I've been sitting at the adults table today, and like you only sort of chime in every now and again when it's like, oh yeah, I like punk. I can talk about guitars, and so thanks for including me, guys. It's been exciting.
You're allowed half a shandy, and then it's off to bed.
Lovely. Okay. Yes. So my staff pick this week has been something in a quite literal sense. The staff pick. I got an email earlier in the week from one of the guys in our office to say, could I take a couple of pictures of a couple of amps because we didn't have a very good one. And the email was, can you take a couple of pictures of the new white Mustang because we haven't got one. And I went, what? They do the Mustangs in white. I don't understand. And then I understood it's the new Fender Mustangs. The Fender Mustang amplifiers now come in white, and I didn't know that, and I took them out. And so if you have a little look at the on the website, the pictures, I took them outside at the shop, a little bit of colour in the background. I was very impressed with myself. I think I've got a career in photography.
Some seagulls in the background.
Yeah.
Did you take the picture on your iPhone?
I took the picture on my iPhone, yeah.
I hate to tell you, I've just had some high-res images through that will replace your
Oh,
pictures.
Mark.
Superseded.
I thought we were mates. Anyway, the Mustang, okay, practice amps. Practice amps is a bit of a conundrum that we sort of talk about every week. I talk about every day. What's the practice amp to go for? And the answer is, it kind of depends on what you want to do. If you want something simple, if you want something, you know, without loads of programming, then go, you know, Roland or Orange. If you want something a little bit more involved, look PV. Or what I'm really digging at the moment is the Fender Mustangs. I think they're absolutely brilliant. The thing that they really shine out across everything else is the Fuse software. It's so intuitive. It's so easy to use. You just plug it into your computer, download the software, and it's all there. You've got so many presets you can edit, and there's so much you can do with it. They're absolutely brilliant. And they've just released them in a few different finishes. They do the Mustang 1 and the Mustang 2, they now do in like an Alpine white. And the Mustang 3, they're now doing like a racing car red, or maybe a Mustang red. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the finish is, but they look absolutely excellent. And I think it was just one of those things where they came over and I went, oh yeah, Mustangs and I plugged one in. I was like, this is great. I went straight to the Supersonic sound because the Supersonic is probably my favourite. Probably my favourite amp, other than the Blues Junior. And they sound great.
They're the Fender amp that does something very different to any other Fender amp.
Yeah.
But worth noting that actually it's not only the Mustangs that have had a bit of a makeover. I noticed in our weekly mail out that also Hot Rod Deluxe in now a surf green body.
Well, I mean, this is part of the
white trim.
Yeah, this is part of the FSR range. Whereas I mean, this is kind of a different. We're kind of going down a different route. The Hot Rod Deluxes have had the FSR treatment, and the FSR range is something that we've spoken about a few times. You know, it's Fender doing something perhaps not especially limited, but you know, a little bit unique and a little bit, you know, it's not going to be around forever. You know, and a classic example of that was, you know, without wanting to sound like a broken record, we had a few of the Blues Juniors in lacquered tweed come in, and I think we had 5, and they just went immediately. So the FSR range is really something that you should keep an eye out on, because they are releasing new stuff all the time, and this is a conversation I have every day, and I always feel bad sounding like a salesman, but if with the FSR range, if there's something that you see that you like, it is not going to stick around for very long, because the FSR range is so cool and so fast moving, and I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about it.
With so much of it, if we can get one shipment of that stuff, then
absolutely,
that's probably all she wrote.
The chances are that if you like it, someone else is already looking at it on the website and is going to buy it. So if you like FSR stuff, snap it up while you can, and in particular, I mean, those Mustangs great, but that Hot Rod Deluxe in mint green and white looks
the white
amazing.
trim. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I still have sad nightmares about the fact that I didn't purchase those hand-stained ash P-basses.
Oh, I think we've all got. An FSR nightmare. Mine's the Blues Junior with the Alnico Blue speaker. Absolutely amazing.
Mine is pending because we've still got those FSR 72 Tele Deluxes in
the sparkle
gold
finishes.
sparkle, green, surf green sparkle.
Yeah, and Lake Placid Blue sparkle.
I just want
or
one, but I can't afford one right now, and they will go, and
you will be sad.
I will be sad,
and it will be one of those things that in a year's time we're talking about the one that got away.
They will be the one. James Watts, what have you been playing this week? What's your staff pick?
I've been getting to grips with the new Markbass Multiamp.
Okay.
Which is quite a wild card, really. I mean, when it first came through the doors, I was a little bit dubious. Markbass are one of those brands that they seem to be constantly bringing out updated versions, even smaller and smaller heads, packing more power into a smaller package with extra features. And then this thing comes through the door, and it's like twice the size nearly of like the little Mark III or something, and just didn't really know what to make of it, first of all. But obviously it's a modelling amp designed to replicate sounds from Ampeg SVTs, Fender Bassemans. It's got a ton of effects built into it, and we just got there. I mean, it looks confusing to start off with, I'll be honest with you, but having got to grips with it, I think it's an awesome bit of kit. It's the kind of thing that would be perfect for the sort of home studio bass player who is laying down everything from heavy metal to funk to Motown. It's got everything. Really great presets. They do a mono and a stereo version. I only got to grips with the mono version so far, but it's
still have the filters that would kind of associate a Markbass one.
Yeah, I mean the thing is they're so flexible tonally. You can literally do anything with them. And you can preset them. You can save. It comes with an SD card, so that you can basically sort of save some presets, go and put it onto someone else's if you want. You've got it's they've really kind of surpassed themselves with regards to the forward-thinking nature of the amp.
I don't know if they've done it on the bass one yet, but I know I was helping Matt out with it a few weeks ago in the guitar version, the DV Mark version, which is similar modelling but for the guitar side of things. Had a really big firmware update, and we were downloading the update from online, putting it on the SD, and then putting it in the unit and updating it. And it added things like a better tuner and a few more presets, and slightly changed how the menu systems work.
Wow, that's fantastic. So essentially you can buy something that's never going to go out of date, really.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, they're always going to keep updating it and adding new features, and so as much they're only limited by what the actual technology in the box can do, because you'll be able to get new patches and, like I say, new features and stuff added onto the basics all the time.
But they've hinted also that they're going to be sort of bringing out maybe some sort of add-ons, in terms of maybe some foot switching, things because ideally, in a live setting, you've got these sounds at your disposal. You don't want to be turning around and flicking switches, on your amp. And I think it's got the potential there to be fantastic for that kind of function musician who's going to be, playing everything from, sort of heavy rock to suddenly playing some pop stuff to whatever. You can literally just cycle through these things.
What's the output on them? Because a lot of these kind of modelling things, when you think of like the pods and things like, just the kind of more rack mount modelling, they don't usually have an amp in there. It's usually just that's the preamp. That's what you get your sounds out of. You can use it for recording, or you buy a power amp and plug it in and then plug it into a cab. But the Markbass stuff, they've got an amp built in, haven't they?
Yeah, it's not the most powerful head that they've ever brought out. I mean, considering everything else that's in there, I think maybe further down the line they're going to. I'd hope that they bring out a higher wattage version. I think what you got in the current version is about 350 watts RMS.
Okay.
And then obviously if you can go and get yourself some, maybe rig it up with a couple of cabs and get higher wattage, like closer to 500, like the little Mark basically.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine that there's going to be demand there for some higher power at some stage. But yeah, watch this space, because I think they've hinted at various updates. It's only come out this year, so
just more and more stuff all the time. And again, with that kind of digital front end, allows them to do that sort of thing that you couldn't do on a regular amp.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's by far the most impressive thing that I've seen from Markbass in a while.
Joe Branton, what have you been playing this week?
This week I thought I'd throw kind of in line with what we've done this week for the podcast with kind of alternative basses, an amp or a cabinet actually that isn't something maybe that people would immediately think of, because I think you can, very very broadly speaking, I think with regards to amps, you can put bass players in two groups. One is the bass player who likes a very modern sound. They're aware that they need to get to their show easily, and so they want something light, portable, and very kind of very versatile and very modern sounding. And the other bank of people will be those who want to push air. They don't care about how much they have to lift.
I love
and they
to push
want
air.
Something, yeah. And they want something that's going to sound maybe a touch more authentic.
Yeah.
So we have the people that buy the SVT classic front ported 410s, and we have the people that buy the Markbass Club 210s. And that's kind of, I suppose, what it works out into. This, I think, bridges the gap. It's for those people that want an authentic sound. They don't want to play Markbass or Galen & Kruger or TC. They want one of those kind of authentic old style sounding brands. But maybe you do play smaller shows. Maybe you are back conscious, but something like that. A reason that you don't want to be lugging around a big, heavy front-ported SVT 410 or, an orange OBC 410 or 810 or anything like that. And it is the orange isobaric 212 smart cabinet.
That is a long word that I'm going to pretend I don't understand. Tell us what isobaric is.
So, if you saw this cabinet, you would think it was a single 12, because it is the size of a single 12 cab. That's what it looks like in an orange chassis. Still very lightweight because it's neodymium, but it's isobaric, meaning that you've got two 12-inch cones in there, but not on top of each other or side by side, but in front and behind, and they are in a vacuum, which allows the two speakers to remain in series. Because bass is kind of to an extent non-directional, that works out quite well. So you can still have kind of all the volume and kind of that sort of vintage thump that you would get from like an old orange 212, but in a really, really portable, very, very small package. So perfect if you've got an orange bass terror, the 500 watt version, a great pairing for that, and just a really cool little rig, like surprisingly little, that I'm pretty sure you could bring anywhere. Those things are really loud. You will get as much out of it as you would.
I think it's amazing that it's a 212 but one hand lift.
Yeah,
like you can
exactly.
just literally, if you needed to carry a pair of them, you could do quite easily.
Yeah.
And get yourself a much meatier rig. But the 212, exactly, as it stands, is great sounding.
Yeah, exactly. It can handle 600 watts, so it's going to handle everything that those incredibly loud little bass terror heads can throw at it. And,
I was genuinely shocked when I heard it in action.
Yeah.
The first time I actually heard one was at a gig, and I saw it on stage, didn't really think much of it. I thought, there's just that guy's using a 112, and then heard the noise coming out of it, and afterwards just had to sort of try and take a closer look, because I'd heard of these cabs, I hadn't seen them at that point, and they're awesome. Absolutely awesome. And of course they've got them in the combo versions as well with the Terra 500 watt head.
That's right, yeah.
And they're just, for someone who wants power in a small package, lots of volume.
And just hugely underrated, because Orange aren't the brand that you look to for that
the small stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know they did the Terra, but certainly they're still considered kind of a bit of a vintage sounding, powerhouse sort of brand, and not the sort of thing that you would look to for portable gear. But yes, wicked cabinets and combos.
Gents, my staff pick, I only managed to get my hands on today, because we did a video for it as soon as they came in. And I think actually I was probably one of the only people in the country who has ever played one, because No pre-orders have gone out yet. Like they'll be going out probably. Well, they would have gone out tonight for tomorrow. The Ed Sheeran LX1E by Martin.
How long have we been waiting for this?
Well, I mean, it's difficult enough to get the normal LX1Es.
Yeah.
They are the hot guitars since Ed Sheeran started playing them. It's so difficult to keep in stock. Martin can't keep up with the demand, and if you order one, I think actually at the moment we might have some LX1Es, but not many, and they haven't been around very long.
No.
But yeah, I mean, even more so, this kind of Ed Sheeran signature, they look a bit different. They've got a Sapel top, I believe, and bizarrely a rich light fingerboard.
Really?
That kind of...
Well, that's what he spec'd.
Well, I think actually features on the normal LX1E as well.
Right.
But they're good. They're nice and bright, and they're punchy.
Yeah.
Because I think the rich light, again, we've talked about this when Gibson were using them on the SGs. It's almost got that kind of ebony style tone. It doesn't kind of suck the top end a little bit like Rosewood, like Rosewood does. And in terms of kind of Ed Sheeran stuff on there, it's got the little... I'm not really familiar with Ed Sheeran particularly, but it's got like a little cross symbol I think was on his album.
It's a symbol that he has on his guitar. I think he's got two, and he's got one that's got a little picture of a cat or something on it.
Okay.
One that's got a little cross on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a cat. I might be wrong. There's something on it. It's a sticker or something like that on his, but they've actually made it part of the decal of the...
Well, it's almost like kind of branded into the wood. It's difficult to describe how it is, but it's like pushed into the top a little bit. So it's got that on one side of the neck joint. On the other, it's EACH, which I think stands for East Anglia Children's Hospices, because some profits from the guitar go towards that. It's kind of a nice, cool...
That's really nice.
Little thing.
People will roll their eyes. We're kind of a rock and roll shop. We're all sort of into that sort of music, and a lot of people will roll their eyes at us going, Ed Sheeran, great guitar, but...
We've already had some Facebook comments to that extent.
I'm sure we have. And, I get it. He's a successful, quote unquote pop artist. But the thing is, he is just a kid who was a busker. And someone went, oh, you're bloody good.
This is actually stepping on the toes of the podcast that we said would dedicate a whole podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the argument of whether or not you can play an artist's guitar.
I was going to apologise for that, actually. Just quickly, before we talk a bit more about the Ed Sheeran. Last week we said we were going to do a kind of, why would anyone buy a signature kind of guitar or amp or any kind of signature product? We haven't got around to that because Matt is not here this week, but maybe next week we'll do that.
So you're going to do it when I'm not here?
Well, basically, people who actually know things can be on the podcast.
Oh, you're out of order.
We'll have a break.
So basically next week's going to be completely characterless but very informative.
It's going to be dull.
Yeah. But no, my point is that it's and I'm sure that you'll go into this next week when you do your boring podcast. I'm sure you'll go into this next week. This and also the Taylor Swift. The Taylor Swift is a little bit different because it is so Taylor Swift branded. But Ed Sheeran is just he's just like a kid who got successful.
Yeah, hard-working kid.
Absolutely, who got successful, and is a really good songwriter.
Yeah,
a really really good songwriter, regardless of of what. And these Martins are wicked guitars. I've got a Taylor Baby, which I think is absolutely awesome. And if you can't, if you're not sure, come in and try them both, because they are both wicked guitars. Like something a little bit small, easy to carry around, super bright, and if you're
tons of volume.
Absolutely. And he like me, and I'm sure he probably heard my stuff, which is why he's gone with that vibe. Super like quite high pitched voice. That's for that sort of thing, wicked.
Ironically, sitting, running the Twitter for the shop as I do, I kind of keep an eye on loads of different feeds and kind of see what people are talking about. And actually, a lot of the time, I'll look at, people who are looking to buy a guitar, or just search for guitar in general. I'm not seeing like Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain. What I'm seeing is, and this has something to do with the demographic of Twitter, obviously, but I see people who are saying, oh my God, I love that Ed Sheeran song. Tonight I'm going to learn that Ed Sheeran song. Or oh my God, I can't believe one of the fellas from One Direction plays guitar. I'm going to learn that song on guitar. And I do think there is less of a kind of, there is kind of a blurring of like pop and rock. And
absolutely,
I think seeing an Ed Sheeran signature guitar and the Taylor Swift guitar to some extent kind of show that people are coming into this
from a different angle. Yeah, and I think that's exciting as well. You know, it's, you know, we got into playing guitar through rock music.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a long time it was kind of, it's like, oh, you're a rocker, you play guitar. Whereas nowadays a lot of people play guitar, and, you know, you can, it's not something that people go, oh, do you play guitar? Okay. You know, if you meet always when I was growing up, my family would be like, "Oh, guitar,
yep,
cool." Whereas now it's like, "Oh, guitar, like that's cool." And you know, but it is. It's like it's a new way of engaging. It's
much
with
less
people.
alternative these days.
Absolutely, it is. And I really do not
take
think
that play guitars.
Take that? Do they?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
One of them drums, one of them plays guitar, one on piano.
Well.
Yeah, I think they're actually quite proficient.
I've yet to see take that in action, so I can't really give an opinion.
But I don't think it's something that, you know, people should cast aside for, you know, as I say, I'm sure this is something that you'll go into next week. But yeah, it's great guitar, guys. Nice one, Ed. If you're listening.
I'm not sure he is a listener to the podcast, but yes, as just in case he's checking it out. Yeah, so the Ed Sheeran LX1E, definitely check them out. We've got a few in stock, but I'm pretty sure by the time this goes out, we'll have less than a few. So check them out on the site. Do check out the video demo featuring some of my passable guitar playing.
You play E?
I do. There's E is featured occasionally. Yeah. Gents, let's wrap this up, because once we start talking about my guitar playing, it will just descend into a whole new world of badness. Jay Cross, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
I will be answering my emails whilst I'm away. My email address is j.cross@gak.co.uk.
Don't make, you know, empty promises here, Jake.
No, but I mean, you know, the important ones. I'll obviously ignore anything that Mark or Joe send me. But, you know, if James sends me an email,
that's great.
I'll get a reply saying whatever.
No, I'll reply to you, you know, because you're all right. I'd much rather you tweet me though, because that's something that I can do and pretend I'm not at work. My Twitter is JAYBN1. If there's anything that you want to know about the USA, be it guitars or I'll be there for the.
You're going to be our mole, aren't you?
I will be the man on the inside. I'll be finding out what Guitar Center have got that Guitar Center have ordered too many of that they won't be able to sell, and we will be getting.
This is going to be great. It's going to be just like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Absolutely.
Lots of talking and not much going on.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, you've kind of just summed something up. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you wanna talk to me about that, or I'll be there for the World Series, or vegan cuisine, I'll be there. I'm your man.
James
man
Watts,
for the job. Keep going.
If people have enjoyed your appearance in this podcast, how can they get in touch with you?
If you enjoyed my appearance on this podcast, you can contact me at the shop via email at james.watts@gak.co.uk.
And have you got a Twitter that people can follow you and tweet at you?
No.
It's 2013.
Honestly,
actually, I do. But the thing is, I very rarely check it. But you can check me at James from above. For guitar-related stuff or just general life, you know, I'll advise the best way I can.
Being handsome and having curly hair.
I was going to say, I think it's important that when this podcast goes out, it should be prefixed with a picture of James Watts, because James Watts is one of the most handsome men I've ever met.
This podcast has instantly got 200% more handsome.
Unbelievable! Like, seriously, guys, James Watts, handsome gentleman.
Every day, I get this every day.
Joe Branton.
Yes.
Imagine how more handsome it would be if you weren't here.
Unbelievable.
It's always 200% because it's like, you know, he's 100% more attractive than us, but Joe's still
dragging the average down.
Easily the second best looking one here.
Really? I think your Bronson-esque Tash will say, you know, it's not all who's the fellow that played Bronson in the films?
Tom Hardy.
Honestly,
There's a big following for moustaches.
Joe Branton. If people want to see your Tash, how can they get in touch with you?
Can we just cut this? No, like, James, who cares about Joe? Let's talk about James again.
Joe Branton. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
If you want to email me, you can email me on joe.branton@gak.co.uk, or if you want to tweet me, especially if you want to talk about really weird, kooky 60s oddball basses, especially violin basses or the Small Faces or the Beatles, then you can tweet me at @Joseph_900.
Now, if you've got any questions, we didn't do any questions this week, so we didn't get any. That's primarily, I think, because we're recording on a Monday and we normally record later on in the week. So do send your questions in. The easiest way to do that is via email, podcast@gak.co.uk. Or you can tweet us, which I'll pick up, @GAK_co_UK. Also, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/GAK Music. Or if you want to talk to me directly, I guess the best way is to tweet me, Mark_random. Next week, J Cross not going to be here. We're going to talk signature models, and I think after the week after that, we're going to do acoustics.
I'm not going to be here for that either.
I know. That's why we're going to do acoustics.
Oh, okay. Who's coming in? Gracie?
Maybe Dan Grace. And
Okay.
we should leave that there. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, cheers, bye.
Farewell
Cheers, bye.
on your travels.
Bye. James. James. Yeah.